Let's talk about prepping. We have a generator. We have lots of wood. We have a solar array, a wind turbine, and propane. We have a garden, a bunch of IBC totes. We have a consistent source of protein. A wood stove. We have a month's worth of food. We have a propane water heater.
And none of those preps are going to save you in a real situation.
And we're going to tell you why. So first, why do we have them? Well, we live in a very rugged, remote area, and we get stuck up here on this mountain for up to 2 weeks at a time.
Yeah, we haven't been in town for a week right now.
We haven't even gotten mail since last Wednesday.
Correct.
It is now Tuesday, so it's been 6 days of no mail. And so we have to have those things. Electricity goes out here frequently as well. We are on grid now. We took our time doing that, 3 years?
About 3 years. Yeah.
Because the electricity here isn't that reliable, and we wanted to build our own grid, and that's expensive, and we couldn't pay to run power and build a grid, so we had to choose which one was most important to us, and it was most important to us to have our own source of power, and this entire house can run off of our grid.
Yeah, we have solar power, we have wind power, we have
Propane,
we have a generator. Just because out here, I mean, if a deer farts in the woods, the power's gone.
yeah, yes. It happens at least once a month. We have tornadoes, we get flash floods, we get ice storms routinely. So that's why we have all of those preps. And what I want to let you know is that your neighbors are your most important prep. Our neighbors are on the same page with us. They also have their own chickens, they have their own grid sources. Usually it's solar power. One of them has a propane whole house generator. We all prep the same way because we're all facing the exact same scenarios regularly. But we have to rely on each other. The county is not going to come plow our road. There's 880 miles of road and 2 snowplows. They're not coming. The police, they're not coming. There's 2 on-duty deputies at any given time.
40 minutes away.
Yeah. The only way to the nearest urgent care, which is an hour away, is a helicopter. So that's why our neighbors are the most important. We keep a suture kit, we keep tourniquets, and so do they. So if we need help, we have to rely on them. They are the closest to us. And they also are willing to bail us out if we need it. For instance, during the last flash flood, one of our neighbors she was out of town. She was about an hour away when the flood came, because it happens like literally instantaneously. And she had kids at home that she couldn't get to. Guess who had to look after the kids until she could get back to her house? It's just one of those things where you have to rely on one another, which is wonderful, but also
You never know when something like that's going to happen. So you have to be prepared in advance.
So if we were facing something apocalyptic, let's say, there is no way, because we have had to face, kind of like mini shit hit the fan scenarios out here.
Yeah.
We know good and well that you cannot survive off of your food stash forever. Your chickens are not going to live forever. You can't prepare in perpetuity unless you are willing to learn how to garden, learn how to forage, learn how to hunt, learn how to trap, learn how to can. And those are things that take time to acquire. Those are skills. Skills are the only thing that's going to keep you alive in a shit hits the fan scenario.
Yeah, and we have like tremendous amount of hunters out here. So like during the Great Depression, there were no deer in this area. Like those were hunted out quick. So you're talking small game, squirrel, rodents, raccoon. You're back to eating possum, which was an actual delicacy back in the early frontier days because of the amount of fat that was on it. It was a very substantial food, and it was actually a bit of a delicacy, which today I think possum might be one of my least favorite things to eat.
I love squirrel though.
Yeah, squirrel, raccoon,
There's no
turtle.
fat on a squirrel.
Yeah, those things are delicious. You just have to know how to cook them, which it's pretty easy. You can pretty much boil anything or throw it over a fire pit and cook it and eat it.
Right. And our neighbor Dewey, who we will interview and introduce you to, he grew up in this holler during the Great Depression, or I guess just after. But he has all the lore from his parents. And one thing I think people in general who aren't familiar with someplace this remote, they convince themselves, like, well, I'm going to go to my bug out location, and that's where I'm going to weather the apocalypse.
You're not making it to your bug out location.
Even if they did make it to their bug out location, like let's say they're not that far away from it, 30 minutes or so, and they have chickens and they out there that somebody feeds for them. What are you going to do when you're out on feed? Do you know how to feed chickens without any feed? Like, people don't think about these practical things. Before this snowstorm hit, we had to go into town and buy 2 50-pound bags of feed to hopefully get us through until we can get, back to town for more feed. It's just simple little things like that people don't realize. So
yeah, you're not protecting your livestock. You're going to stay up 24 hours a day making sure somebody doesn't shoot your cow and eat it.
Right.
Like, it's not happening.
No.
So you have to have a community in that aspect, which I think Annie's talking about with, knowing your neighbors. And we have some neighbors, I don't necessarily trust them. I mean, they're, 4 or 5 miles away, but
they've never been here.
Yeah, they've never really been here. They come in like 3 times a year, and, you hear them shooting guns and doing these things, but,
Yeah, we have 2 neighbors that have bug out locations on our road.
And I have a retired sergeant major that I'm friends with, and his whole plan is just to come take your stuff. He's got about 15 guys. Now they live like 3 hours north of here, so they'd never make it down here. But just know that there are groups of people that are tactically trained, and they have tremendous amount of weapons and ammunition, and
their plan is to
come take your stuff. So really holding up in a location, it probably isn't your best plan. I would recommend getting a kind of a flora and fauna type of book, so that you can go out into the actual wilderness and find your own food, like learn about your mushrooms.
Your region, what grows in your region that you can forage.
Where's fresh water at?
Yeah, and learn bushcraft. Learn how to build your own shelters. I grew up doing these things. My mom was really big into bushcraft and foraging, and so was my dad. And it was just play for us. We did it all the time. But it was an invaluable skill set that I was gifted by my parents. So part of moving out here was so we could gift that to the kids, our sons, because living on a military installation usually doesn't lend itself to teaching them those sorts of skill sets. And that's a big part of why we wanted to come out here before they left home, so that we could teach that to them, because we want our grandchildren to inherit that as well.
Yeah, it's like one of my favorite drinks is sassafras tea. Now that's illegal. You can't sell that on the market. It's the most prevalent root that's in the U.S. Just take a sassafras root, throw it in some water, and boil it for about 20 minutes and drink it. It tastes like sassafras tea. Or
tastes
root
like
beer. Yeah.
But we don't recommend that you do that because the FDA says you shouldn't.
That's right, because one
study,
part in a billion showed that it has cancer. Now, a potato chip, you're fine, eat that. You can eat a potato chip, but you can't drink sassafras tea, which is also like a anti-parasite. So we give it to our dogs, chickens, ducks, hogs, just once a month, just so they can actually it gets rid of their parasites.
And we will be making some videos about some of these things. We're not going to go super in depth, but we'll definitely do like a video of us making sassafras tea later in the year when you can identify it based on its leaves.
Well,
we can identify it without that, but they can't.
Yeah, look for the mitten.
Yeah, you got to find the mitten. And then you got to find the dinosaur foot.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll teach you guys that later. But we just wanted to let you know from our perspective as people who live in a really remote location who are frequently bugging out because of the weather, so to speak, what we think about shit hits the fan scenario and what you need versus what you don't need.
Yep.
So, is that it?
That's all I've got.
That's all I got.
All right. Hey, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Stay safe, be smart, and don't let thorn and thistle get in your way.
Bye.